So the POMY Jehovah's Witness is an acronym for someone who is physically out of the organization, but mentally they're still in. They still believe. Maybe you have a family member who's a POMY. Maybe you're a POMY. Not all POMYs are created equal. Some POMYs are tall, some are short. Some have self-awareness. Some are absolute dumpster goblins. So this video is going to explain why some people manage to leave the Jehovah's Witnesses organization. Somehow they leave, but still they struggle mentally to untangle themselves from years of indoctrination, even after they've left. There are 5 types of POMYs. The last one in particular, I really care about and have something to say. Let's get started. All right, the first one is the most common type of POMY. This POMY is absolutely plagued by guilt and shame and still believes that the organization is the, quote, truth. They just gotta get their shit together one of these days. No, they're gonna get it together and then make their grand re-entrance, their grand return. And sometimes it does happen. They do go back, but the guilt lingers, man. It's bad. I saw this for 30 years. When I was a little kid, teenage years, in my 20s, I saw this all the time. They never feel good enough. Even though they went back, they just never feel like they add up. You can just see it in their face, their countenance, their spirit is just broken. Or sometimes they go back and they're insufferable. They had 6 kids by 9 different fathers, and they're going to lecture you on sexual immorality. These types, the insufferable types, they're also consumed by guilt, but it expresses itself differently. These types are just born-again hypocrites. Like, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect, but they're quick to forget where they came from, and they're quick to judge others. I mean, those are just the absolute worst who end up going back. So yeah, this first POMY just really beats themselves up. They still refer to it as, like I mentioned before, they still refer to it as the truth. They're real cagey about that. They've been out for 20, 15, 20 years, and they're still calling it the truth. And if their friends try to make inroads, or their loved ones try to make inroads to be like, hey, have you questioned it? Like a wall goes up. They're really cagey if you try to say otherwise, or, try to wake them up. They're convinced it's the truth. They're still afraid of Armageddon. A lot of times they're also in relationships with outsiders. Maybe they have a worldly boyfriend or girlfriend. It's usually a worldly girlfriend that they're stringing along. Now, why isn't he proposing? Because in the back of his brain, you don't fit into the puzzle. You're not a witness girl. He's got to marry a witness girl. It's usually that kind of mentality. I want you to understand the thought process. Everything has to fit into place. They got to marry a witness girl, or, go back and find a brother. They crave dad's approval. They want to do right by mom, make mom proud. And a few years ago, the organization came out with a video. I'm going to pull it up here. They came out with this video depicting a, quote, inactive person. That's technically what they call these people. That's the official term that's used in the organization. Jehovah's Witnesses don't technically use the term POMY. That's an acronym that is used in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, or ex-JW circles. But they made this video like a how-to guide of how to help inactive Jehovah's Witnesses, and it shows a sister from a nearby congregation basically stalking this POMY, this inactive sister, if you will, at her home. I did a whole video on it last year. I'll leave a link in the bio below. But it depicted the inactive sister as this, poor lost soul who is just so grateful that the sister kept hounding her, essentially, to come back. And I got a newsflash for you. I used to tag along on those detective missions, if you will, that's depicted in this video. And these people don't want to be found, all right? There's a reason they go into hiding. If you were so happy at the Kingdom Hall, if you were so happy being a Jehovah's Witness, you would have never left. And even as a child, my intuition said something was off about this, about what we were doing. It just didn't feel right. It felt like an infringement of their privacy. It felt pushy and awkward. And of course, the video doesn't explain why the inactive sister is struggling with depression and why she left. If they admit that they are the source of her depression or stress, or play some major factor in her current life circumstances, it doesn't suit their narrative of being the hero. So yeah, this POMY is just an absolute mess. The indoctrination runs deep. Okay, the POMY troll. This POMY also feels guilty and ashamed, is also consumed with guilt, but instead of taking the necessary steps to go back, they have this idea in their minds that they can win points with Jehovah by being keyboard warriors on social media. One of the biggest giveaways, scroll through any XJW video, any XJW content, look for a comment that says, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, but I actually feel really sorry for these POMYs because anyone who has anything going for them in life, they're talented, ambitious, hardworking, laser focused, they got great friends, they got good things going for them. They have a life, someone who's actually going somewhere in life. These individuals don't stop to waste their time or invest their energy in arguing with strangers and defending a cult on the internet. You ever met someone's kid and you're trying to be nice about it, but their personality just sucks? They're just miserable. That's what POMY trolls are like. They're just like tired, pissy toddlers. Like, here's the cookie you wanted, you little shit. Here. If the organization is so great, right? No one's stopping you. Go back. Okay, so when I talk about the quote creative POMY, I'm referring to hipster / artist / musician, free spirit. And these types either never got baptized, so technically they can go away and they're not official card-carrying members, so there's a little bit more leeway with them, or they are a baptized witness, but by some miracle or congregation politics, they can go off and do things and they never really got in trouble. If you're good looking and you know the right people, it's petty. Shallow, yes, but it happens. So this POMY, they're interesting. They do feel a pang of guilt and obligation. They're not going to the meetings. They're not knocking on doors. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. But if they're honest with themselves, they don't actually believe. I knew these types. This type of POMY, if they were honest with themselves, it's not because they actually believe the doctrine. The real pull or tug that they feel is towards their devout family. These POMYs, I had family members like this. These POMYs scream, I don't belong here. Everything about them screams, I don't fit the mold, the JW mold. I draw outside the lines. And yet, so you can understand the POMY mindset, they speak with respect and reverence towards the organization, and their critical thinking just shuts off. It's a no-fly zone. No matter what, they'll defend the organization. It's bizarre. That's why I say the pull or the tug to go back is they might feel like some spiritual connection or need for spirituality in their life. Totally fair. But if they're honest with themselves, that tug or that pull is towards their devout family and whatever little sprinkle of guilt they got going on because they don't fit the mold. They're hippy-dippy artist, musician, creative types. The family just manages to get their hooks in, but this person doesn't belong in the organization. Again, I had family members like this. I felt like this. I got crap. It was like a Kevin Bacon Footloose situation. I got crap for dancing, for doing ballet, My brother was a musician, is a musician. I've known many an artist, these creative types, who go back. And again, I understand, somebody out there might be saying well, just because they're that way that, they still might have a spiritual need or, they're looking for God or whatever. That's totally fair. They can be their more liberal side and, still want that connection or that spirituality in their life. But you also have to understand, this is an organization that is extremely square, extremely conservative. Maybe you've seen situations where it's we all cut up after, but on paper, in their literature, in their lectures, anyone who really knows Jehovah's Witness culture knows it's very buttoned up. It's that the organization creates an absolutely suffocating environment for creative types, just snuffing out whatever creative expression or imagination you may have. It's just not a place where you go to dream. It's where dreams go to die. Anything that doesn't align with their extremely narrow worldview is not encouraged. It's not a thing. Okay, so the double standard POMY is a flaky parent who makes their kids go to the Kingdom Hall, makes their kids go to all the meetings, but they won't go themselves. What happens is they usually make their kids go with their believing spouse or their, I should at least say their active spouse. Go on with your mother to the meetings. And how does that work, you ask? Well, both are mentally in. You see? Even if one's staying at home for whatever reason, they got this dynamic going on. You have to understand at least the parent that's at home that's POMY, that's still mentally in, isn't trashing the organization. And then the kid is confused, why do I have to go? But the POMY parent enables the believing spouse, forces the kid to go with the believing spouse to the Kingdom Hall because they believe it's the right thing to do, even if they don't have their shit together. What's even worse, man, I've talked about this before, is when the kid grows up. Maybe they were a good witness kid. He grows up, becomes a grown-ass man. He wakes up. Oh my God, it's not the truth. Not only does the believing parent shun him, the POMY parent shuns him too. That's f***ed up. All right, the kid never asked for any of this, wakes up one day, and the parent, the POMY parent, who's preaching one thing but sits their ass at home, has the nerve to shun their own child. It's absolutely freaking psychotic. I mean, that bullshit requires some serious mental gymnastics. And finally, the questioning POMY. I understand this might sound like a contradiction, like, well, aren't they mentally in? How can they be questioning? This type of POMY is typically out for 15 to 20 years, some really long time frame. Like everyone else, they go through the guilt cycle. They probably have some regrets. That just makes sense. They're human. But when something hits them, like, hold up, they changed their blood policy? Oh, now going to college is a matter of conscience? These types of POMYs, they're like Jenga. You just got to knock that one block loose and it all comes crashing down. Just knock that one block loose and it pushes them over the edge. Because they are willing to lock in to, or unlock, I should say, that critical thinking. It's like those other POMYs will rationalize till they're blue in the face, have these neck vein screaming matches. Or, you got the creative POMY who doesn't fit the mold at all, but they have this emotional attachment to their family. But this is different. This POMY, what makes them different, this POMY is reasonable and hates the hypocrisy. I can't tell you how many times John and I have received emails from these types of POMYs who officially, finally, after that 15, 20 years, did allow themselves to question, did allow themselves to deconstruct and question the governing body, question the organization, and they are actually officially awake now after a long period of time. That is just so cool. They'll say things like, I haven't stepped foot into a Kingdom Hall in over 30 years. I moved on with my life. I got married. I had kids. Life went on, but I still always had, they'll admit, I always had this little nagging voice in the back of my head until, one of the GB members gets up there and changes the blood policy. Holy shit. I had no idea. I wasn't even paying attention to any of this. And then they're watching and going, oh my God, look at all these changes. What? So anyways, something in their brain finally clicked and they're like, oh, I'm so done. It's just awesome because now they're officially free, you see, of any lingering vestiges of their indoctrination. Love to see it. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you would like to know more about the inner workings of the Jehovah's Witnesses from a former member of 30 years, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.